No, don't do it. Don't sell your home until you've listened to this video, because one of the top 5 things I regret in my life is selling the properties that we held. I've moved 11 times in 21 years, and every time I've sold my property, I've regretted it. So let's get into it. If you're thinking of selling your house, you're probably talking to other realtors out there. You're watching YouTube videos and you're trying to time the market thinking, wow, look at all this money I made on my property. Maybe I should sell the house, maybe rent for a little while, jump back in the market. Maybe this is a really wise idea. And if you are talking to other realtors, they're probably going to tell you, yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, we are top of the market. We've seen just crazy appreciation, but is that really a good decision long term? And I can tell you from experience that it has not worked out for me when I've had that mindset. I can tell you kind of what I'm doing and also kind of what I'm talking about with my clients when they do meet with me and ask me those questions. Before we get into some reasons why not to sell, let's talk about some situations that it might make sense to sell in today's market. I've had some of my clients who have had recent deaths in their family, whether a mother, a loved one, or a sibling passes away, they inherit a property, the property's in a trust, and the parties just want to sell the property, split the proceeds, and move on. And of course, that makes sense for a lot of families. Other good reasons to sell the house are you're going through a divorce and you need to split the assets. You know, you have to move, a relocation, and you just don't want to have the hassle of renting out a property across, different state lines, right? Or, you lose your job, or the house you're in right now, you just can't afford. It's just too expensive. You got yourself in over your head, or you lost your job. Those are all good reasons to sell. But what I'd like to focus on are those reasons like, hey, I just want to get the money out of the house and I want to buy something bigger, or I'm afraid the market's going to tank and I'm just going to give you my warning against doing that. I've done that in the past and it did not prove to be the right decision. I think the most common thing that I'm hearing out there in the calls and the conversations I'm having with clients is primarily sellers, is they're like, hey, Audra, I think we're top of the market. I'm getting really nervous. I'm feeling like it's 2008, 2009. Should I put my house on the market? I don't know. I'm getting really nervous. We all lived through that era, and I don't want to be caught in the same situation where my house literally dropped 20, 30, 40% in value in a very short period of time. Those conversations are fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and they're motivated by fear, and that's what I want to warn you against in today's video. So back in 2008, 2009, my husband and I owned multiple properties together, and when the market crashed, and boy did it crash, his business tanked. He's in the M&A space and in the insurance era, sector, whatever, and I'm in real estate. So both of our markets went out from underneath of us, and we had tenants that weren't paying. We were worried about where the money was going to come from for paying our houses. Now, the one thing we did do that was very responsible is we paid down a lot of our debt on all of our properties. So we liquidated everything. I was raised that you always pay your debt. You don't file for bankruptcy, blah, 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 blah. So we got all of the houses sold off and, a little bit of stress relief, but that was probably the biggest mistake we've ever made financially together. If we would have just held those properties, just held them for 10 years, our financial position would have catapulted us into a different place than where we are today. Now, the goal of this isn't to be rich, but I just want to warn you against some of the decisions and choices that we made that were not good regarding housing. And I just don't want anybody watching this video to make the same mistakes. Most important thing, I think, is the takeaway here is do not try to time the market. If you want to sell your house because it makes sense, okay, fine. But if you're selling your house just to time the market, I'm going to warn you against doing so. Can't tell you how many clients I sat in front of telling them what I'm telling you now, like, hey, I don't know. I'm not sure we're top of the market, but does this make sense for you? I don't know. I think your motivation should be a different one, right? Because when you do sell your house, there's a ton of costs. There's a lot of closing costs. You got hassle costs. You got moving costs. You got inconvenient costs. Lots of costs involved. So it's not as clean as everybody thinks it is, okay? So if you are going to try to time the market, I'm going to advise against it. And once again, for the last 3 years, I've been talking to sellers and they're like, nope, we're top of the market. I'm out. I'm getting scared. And they've been renting, and it hasn't been easy rental market. It's extremely expensive to rent right now. And how many thousands, even hundreds of thousands, are people waiting for the market to tank or to, retract, to jump in and buy at the low? I think everyone watching this video would love to sell their house at the top of the market and then of course buy at the bottom. And there's very few people that have ever done that, and the ones that have done it, it was probably not intentional. So be forewarned about that. We have had a tremendous appreciation in the housing sector, at least in my area. Some of the properties have doubled and tripled in value in only 3-year period, and that is remarkable. But remember, when you go to sell your property, there is this thing called capital gains. Now, if you're filing jointly on your taxes, you get a $500,000 deduction. And if you are filing single, you have a $250,000 deduction. I did do a video, which I'll link down below, on capital gains and what all that looks like and how the IRS reads it, because people are always asking me, Audra, what's the capital gains tax? It's like, it's a moving number. So watch the video down below for more information regarding capital gains. The amount you're walking away from when you go to sell your house, you got to calculate that in there, along with closing costs, along with moving and hassle and all the other costs. It's not as easy as it appears. Now listen up. This is really, really important. And that is, if you were to do a equity line of credit or a second on your property, the money you take out of your property is not taxable. So you can use that money, go make a down payment with that money, and you're still left with your primary residence, and the new property you can move into, rent your primary residence out, get a little cash flow, help you pay for the new property, and now you're starting to create generational wealth, right? So, and just full disclosure, that's what I'm doing because I've learned my lesson. We don't sell our properties when times get tough. You expect difficult times and you have the discipline to stay in it despite what the markets might be doing. If you take a second out on your house or an equity line of credit, realize the rates are outrageous right now. But realize you more than likely have a very low rate on your primary residence or your departing property. So when you go to rent it out, you're going to be pretty astonished at how much rent you're going to get. And that's going to create cash flow for you, which it might make up the gap on the new property. You know, this is short-term pain for long-term gain, right? So it might be tight for a little bit, but if you have the finances and the reserves to make it happen, it might make sense for you. So I'm just encouraging you to do the math. You know, like I said before, always good to live below your means, but this is one of the ways that a lot of real estate investors and people of wealth create that passive income that helps them to retire or pass on generational wealth in the future. One of the things I learned in my mistakes back in 2008, 2009 is it's always a good idea to live below your means. I know our parents are always telling that, but there is some truth to that. So if you are looking to purchase now, or if you're hunkering down, whatever the case may be, it's always a good idea to have those extra reserves. You just don't know if you wake up one day, you don't have your job, or the market's going a different way, or whatever tragedy could, you know, arise here in the near future. So when you're making a decision to purchase or even just stay put, do the worst case scenario, be comfortable with it, prepare for it. So when it does arise, you're not going to panic like I did and just like, you know, pull the parachute and I'm out of here, and I lost a lot of my wealth creation. And it's taken me 10 to 15 years to get to where I am because of one mistake way back when, because I got scared. So don't make the decision to sell your house out of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. No, not good. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself again. My name is Audra Lambert. I am one of the top selling agents in Orange County, California. So if you're looking for a good realtor, you know who to contact. And of course, if you're getting any benefit out of this video, please subscribe to my channel and smash that like button, because I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Your help would be greatly appreciated. Today is October 28, 2023. And what I can tell you about today's market is we have mortgage rates that are over 8%. I can tell you that the housing inventory is constrained. I can tell you there's very, very little buyer demand. And when you're out there doing open houses or showing properties, it's kind of like a ghost town. You get very little activity when somebody does call to, you know, make a request to see the property. They're serious buyers, but we don't have lines that are, you know, standing outside of the door for an open house. The market is definitely muted. The reason why I tell you that is because that's exactly what happened this time last year. I had 2 houses I could not sell last year. I mean, everybody that was coming in at the open houses or those showing appointments were offering way below what the offer price was, very little interest. And I just told my sellers, I'm like, listen, you don't have to sell. Why don't we take the house off the market? Let's wait, 90 days, repackage it and put it on the market at the beginning of the year. And of course we did. And when we started 2023 beginning, we had a very, very strong start. And I sold those 2 properties off market without even putting it on the market. I tell you that not because I'm promising you that the beginning of 2024 is going to be great, but the point of this is you can never time the market. So don't try to outsmart smart. There are so many moving parts that affect it. If you want to sell, just make sure it makes sense, and it's never a bad idea to hold your position, especially if you can afford it for a very, very long time. If you are selling your house or considering it, just heed my warning, okay? Think long term. Is this house going to be worth more in 10 or 20 years? And more than likely, or when I ask my sellers that, they go, well, yeah. Like, all right, then why are you selling it? Like, let's come up with a different way to finance, your new property, because I think it's a good idea. If you have the finances and the ability to own two at once by renting one of them out, it might be more strategic to do so. And if you say, no, Audra, we're selling the house, this is what we're comfortable with, then I am going to tell you now more than ever, you need to make your properties look beautiful, right? You need to go to those extra steps. I've done several staging videos. I'll link those down below. I do have a staging checklist for those of you who want to do your own staging, or if you're working with a professional and you're just going to help prepare your property for their staging items. I'll link the checklist down below. If you are like, Audra, I don't care, I have to sell my house, I have my reasons, and I appreciate your warning, then I would say definitely present your house in the best light, but also probably equally as important is hiring the right representation. I was on the internet this morning looking at, all the different listings, and I'm shocked and horrified that some of these agents are not putting the time and the money into presenting the house. It really is that important. We have buyers who are very savvy. They're not going to come visit your property unless it looks good. Have an agent that knows how to direct you wisely. I mean, this one property, there's literally an agent, on their cell phone taking pictures of the property. I mean, it's just so unprofessional. I have done a video on how to interview a realtor, and I have a checklist down below as far as 13 questions that you can ask your realtor when you're interviewing them. Do not make that mistake. If you have a bad realtor, potentially they could be losing money for you, but if you have a good one, they're worth their weight in gold. So I'm thinking of buying a new car, and I'm just tired of it, just like bored, right? And I think oftentimes in our houses, we do the same thing, or we're just sick of the house, or we don't like our neighbor, or whatever, we don't like our location, or we just want a new start, right? And I listen to my husband now, because when we sold all of our properties in 2008 and 2009, I was leading it because I was freaking out and I didn't want to deal with all the stress. So the difference between cars and homes, however, is that cars, unless it's of course an old car that's appreciating, but most cars are a depreciating asset. And my husband tells me, Audra, the cheapest car that you can drive is the one you have. So save your money and shut up. So hard, I want a new car. But the house is a little bit different, right? A house is an appreciating asset. So if you can handle where you're at, probably where you're living is gonna be the least expensive option right now for you, probably even more so than renting, because rents are so high. So if you do have a property and you can live there, I say hunker down, save your money, save as much as you can, and either go buy a second property eventually and try to keep that one. This is just what I'm doing right now. I'm sharing what I'm doing and what I'm having conversations with my clients, because if you do save that property, more than likely in 10, 20 years, it's going to be worth a lot more value than what it is now. So I know it's hard. We want that shiny new thing. I admittedly, struggle with this, but I have learned my lesson and I am passing on my experience with you. I hope you're getting some benefit. So another warning is that for those of you who have families or you're just moving up to a bigger house, realize you have more property tax, more than likely, more maintenance. You got to buy more furniture. Usually the yard's larger. I mean, everything costs more. And I've had a lot of you downsizers say, oh, I just want to downsize into something smaller. Realize everything's smaller. Your garage is smaller, your cabinets are smaller, everything is smaller. And you're like, yeah, I like that. I'm like, What I've seen here in my, I'd say last 15, 20 years in my career is if you're going from a huge house down to a smaller house, usually they sell the smaller house and find something a little bit bigger. And for those of you who are going to a big house, and you realize, wow, that's a little too big, and somehow you resell that and find something in the middle. So my point in telling you that is don't go too drastic. I don't know why I'm adding this in there other than the fact that that's another mistake I made. But of course, if you are selling your house and you are in my area, please give me a call. I'd love to interview for the job. And once again, if you got any benefit out of this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.